Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Catholic Coffee Talk, a podcast where in between sips, we answer your Catholic questions. I'm your host, Father Brad Doyle, and I have with me our resident good Catholic, Peter Gone. Peter, I was just in Charlotte. Did you see my text message?
I saw it way too late. I'm sorry that we missed you.
I was expecting you to drive to the airport, buy me a Chipotle, and then leave the airport.
I mean, I would have if I had seen your text in time.
No, I literally had like 30 minutes connection. I like to when I'm flying into places where my friends are and I'm flying through there, I like to like almost scare them as if they like forgot that I was coming to visit. You know what I'm saying? Like send them a text, be like, yep. At the airport, you know. Did that happen to you?
I had this split second. I was like, wait, did we set up a plan to like have him come and like record in the studio? I was like, no, we didn't. I wouldn't have. Exactly.
That's what I like to do. So yeah, it was good. It was a whirlwind. Flew to woke up, had mass Sunday. So the next morning, woke up at like 4:30. Drove to the airport.
Wow.
Flew. Got there at noon in Greenville. Friend picked me up to Brevard. Baptism at 6. Hang out. Whiskey, talk, sing Irish songs.
Oh, yeah.
11:30, wake up at 2:30 a.m., fly back for a meeting that did not exist.
Oh, no.
So I got back and I walked up to the diocese. It's like my first Presbyteral Council meeting, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is going to be great. I'm going to get there early. And they're like,
I'm
it
totally
got
not
canceled.
tired at all. Yeah. It's going to be great.
I'm still recovering. My head still hurts from like getting 2 hours of sleep over like 2 days. So, but anyway, I'm ready for this. What's been going on in your life?
You know, I just went up to D.C. actually this past weekend. Saw some old college friends. Saw some family up there. So yeah, I'm still pretty tired. Not nearly as tired as you, I'm sure, just from all the driving. But yeah, had a good weekend. And other than that, just been watching the Sox in the ALCS.
I need to get back into baseball just for the postseason.
Yeah, it's a good time.
It's a good time to watch it. It's kind of like hockey. I can watch like the Stanley Cup. That's about it. Baseball, I can watch like the postseason. Basketball, I don't even watch. Football, I love me some Saints. So
yeah, it's funny with baseball because either I get into it like right as spring hits and I follow pretty much all the season, follow the Red Sox, or I like miss the boat at opening day, and then like I just can't get into it. Maybe I'll listen to a few games or something in the summer, but like it's like I decide on opening day whether or not I'm going to commit that year. Yeah,
it's just like the groundhog, or like the Saint Januarius's blood. It comes out. Is it the year? Is it liquefied? Is it not?
Yeah.
Well, this is a year I'm not following it.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah.
Well, speaking of followers, we have some followers of our podcast who have some questions. I think it's time for What's Percolating.
Let's go.
November is the month of the Holy Souls, but today, fewer people say that they believe in purgatory. Their spiritual focus is often only of feeling good or thinking of a heaven where everyone is assured of instant bliss. But visitors from the other side tell us a different story. There are countless stories of visitations from those beyond the grave, telling their loved ones about the visceral realities of the life beyond the grave. Not to mention, visions of the saints and others who see beyond during a near-death experience. Some might ignore all of this as simple superstition, but what's a Catholic really supposed to believe? We know there are invisible realities, like angels and demons, and we know of our departed loved ones are very much alive. But what about the rest? Do ghosts exist? Are they just demons? What does the Church say about all this, and why does it matter to you? Now you'll know. Good Catholic has a perfect series for this, Angels and the Supernatural. 21 days to examine the invisible world around you. This series will give you a healthy perspective on the spiritual world so that you will respect it, but not live in fear of it. Get the facts on angels, demons, and departed souls. Click the link in the description to watch the trailer and to sign up today.
What's Percolating? Where the questions percolating in your head get answers from the Catholic Church's tradition. What do we have today, Peter?
Hello, my name is Chase, calling from Germantown, Maryland. My wife and I are very busy and oftentimes have to do chores on Sunday in the house. What are ways to keep holy the Lord's Day on Sunday? Thank you.
Wow. Chase, my heart is on fire. Someone finally did it. They sent in a voice message. That's awesome.
They did. So it was great. Our inaugural Speak Pipe voice message.
Look, so that's Chase. You heard his question. You heard his voice. So we're going to, I guess, talk about Sunday obligations.
And Chase isn't the only person who's written in about this. We also have a question from Roxy. Well, first she comments that says, you guys make it real in your explanations. You throw in humor as well. She loves it. Great. But she asked the question of, is it a sin to work a job on Sundays? I have to work a part-time job on weekends to make ends meet. I do not sacrifice Mass. I go to work after Mass. So we got two people coming in asking about Sundays and Sunday obligations and work on Sundays and that kind of thing. So let's get into it.
So we're going to kind of answer both their questions today. And what I decided to do is really just go to the Catechism because the Catechism has a really good explanation of this, as it does for everything. Basically, we should always just go to the Catechism. But this particular, I went to read it, and I thought it was very balanced and nuanced and kind of answers all their questions. And so it's in, so if you didn't know, the Catechism of the Catholic Church is organized in paragraphs. So it's got 4 sections. And so like one's like about the creed, number 2 is about like liturgy, 3 is about like morality and life and virtue and kind of morality part of it, ethics, and then 4 is about prayer. So that's the big sections. But in order to kind of find your place in very quick references, it's done by paragraphs. So paragraph 2184. By the way, what do you think is going to be happening in the year 2184?
Nothing
do you
good.
Think? No. Well, hopefully they're still saying Mass. I mean, I won't be alive.
I'm sure good things will happen. I just.
But like as we keep going, it's like I just don't know. We're probably going to be like, there's going to be a horrible, I don't know, scientific experimentation on people or something.
Like 2021 is almost over. We're going to go into 2022, and I'm just like, do we have to? Like, do we have to keep the show going?
Meanwhile, like the SpongeBob SquarePants meanwhile meme, where it's like, meanwhile, in 2184. Okay, so 2184, not year, but paragraph. The Catechism, the Church talks to us about our obligations. So let's just read through it and kind of comment on it. Okay, Peter?
All right.
Just as God rested on the 7th day from all his work, which he had done, which is a quote from Scripture. Human life has a rhythm of work and rest. The institution of the Lord's Day helps everyone enjoy adequate rest and leisure to cultivate their familial, cultural, social, and religious lives. So that's the start. And I like this, that the Church starts its understanding of following that commandment. Like, one, it places it in Scripture. This is a commandment from God from the beginning. But then it also gives like a purpose too. Like, it's to worship God, but it's also to help human beings, right? So like, because I don't know if we ever talked about this, but Joseph Pieper's book, Leisure, the Basis of Culture.
I don't know if we've talked about it, but we've brought it up in a couple of Good Catholic series where we talk about
leisure.
Yeah,
Leisure, the Basis of Culture. And it's the idea that really wonderful things we love about being human, art, music, philosophy, theology, dance, these things that make us different from the animals and are truly human experiences, really only flourish in leisure, right? So we're not worried about, just getting by or being safe or working, but time to think, time to pray, time to interact, have community. So culture, the things that we love about culture, are a product of leisure. And that's written directly into our lives by God himself, who says, I want you to be fulfilled. I want you to be happy. So obviously we worship God, but it's also about us too. And I think that's important to point out.
Yeah, it's like it's a gift more than it's an obligation, And I think the Catechism is spot on. It's really kind of wise to say that it's not just about worship. I know we'll probably talk more about this further down, but like, people think, keep holy the Sabbath means going to church, and you check that box, and then you did it, you're done. But it's not just about that. Like here the Catechism says, familial, cultural, social, and religious lives. It's about way more than just liturgy and just going to church.
Yeah, the glory of God is man fully alive, and he wants us to be alive.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, 2185. On Sundays and other holy days of obligation, the faithful are to refrain from engaging in work or activities that hinder the worship owed to God, the joy proper to the Lord's day, the performance of works of mercy, and appropriate relaxation and mind and body. Family needs or important social service can legitimately excuse from the obligation of Sunday rest. The faithful should see to it that legitimate excuses do not lead to habits prejudicial to religion, family life, and health. And so, like, there's the basis is that, you know, we highlight Sunday as a special day, and we try not to do unnecessary work. But again, there's this kind of gray area, not gray area, just a practical addressing of this or reading of this or expression of this that the church has, that sometimes we have to, right? Sometimes there's things that are outside of our control. Family needs, important social service. Like an example would be, I mean, if I was going to lead a hurricane relief effort on a Sunday, like, we got to serve, you know, it's like, we're like, oh, I guess we're not going to help those people who had that natural disaster. Our neighbors, you know, house caught on fire. And like the next day, like we spend the day not resting, quote unquote, but like working on their house. Well, that's okay.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure. Yeah.
So we're not being legalistic about it. And I think it even gets even more deep about like people who have jobs on those days. But actually 2187 is really cool because it talks about like a society's need, like how celebrating Sunday and respecting the Lord's Day is a communal effort. Right? It takes an entire community, and I've seen this in certain areas of the country where it's a more Christian area or more Catholic area, and things shut down on Sundays. Have you noticed that?
I have noticed that a little bit. That was definitely something I noticed moving to the south from the northeast. I mean, things don't totally shut down on Sundays, but there's a much bigger chance that a given store or something will be closed on a Sunday, which is good.
I mean, we gotta give a shout out to
Chick-fil-A.
like this guy, and so a man, Truett. What's his first name's Truett something, but the owner and founder of Chick-fil-A. That's a way that we all like universally have experienced. Somebody deciding that like their business they're gonna leave Sunday sacred for their employees. Much to the chagrin of many people traveling on Sundays and wanting to stop at Chick-fil-A, including myself. But in how much money, and I like to think about this, how much money is he losing? Like, I'm sure there's been people who are like business people, his accountant, his whatever, that have come to him and said like, okay, that's one day. So you're losing an entire day every week where you would be packed. You'd be making bank.
Right.
And he decides, you know what?
Nah.
This is important for not just me personally, but for my employees and for our society, right? It says here in 2187, sanctifying Sundays and holy days requires a common effort. Every Christian should avoid making unnecessary demands on others that would hinder them from observing the Lord's Day. Traditional activities, sport, restaurants, etc., and social necessities, public services, etc., require some people to work on Sundays, but everyone should still take care to set aside sufficient time for leisure. So here it's like, hey, if we can, let's sanctify it. Let's not ask people to work on Sundays. So I think here of like football coaches at like schools, at Catholic schools. I'm having to deal with this right now where I've reached out to the coach of our local public school who's a Christian himself, and he's having practice on Sundays. And I was like, hey man, like, is this good? Like, we have the power. I mean, you're the only school in town. Like my kids aren't getting a confirmation, so we're working it out. But the church also recognizes that traditional activities that are leisure, like sports and restaurants and stuff, social necessities, public services, right? So like the entire world cannot shut down because of the way the world works and how connected we are. So there's some people that might have to work on Sundays. Another example of this is catechists.
Yeah.
A youth minister.
That's true. Yeah.
So obviously it's not this. The church doesn't interpret rest on Sundays to be this hard and fast. Like if you are lifting a finger on a Sunday, you're breaking this commandment. Obviously it's not as strict as that. I don't know. What's your thoughts on it?
I think we're all kind of on the same page here. I mean, if you just think about the practicalities of it, like, I don't know why, but I was thinking lately about what would it be like to be like a seafarer or just to be like a maritime worker, where you have to live on a boat, kind of work. It's not like, oh, it's Sunday, we need to anchor and stop in the middle of the Atlantic and stop shipping, right? So that's kind of maybe an out there kind of example, but I don't know, that was in my head. But I think on a personal level, there's a certain amount of discernment you can use about why you're doing a certain thing, and the leisure it might bring, or the work, or the burden that it might have. So this is a conversation we were having here in the office. We were talking about like Sunday rest and Sunday leisure, and how it is like a commandment to not really work on Sunday if you can avoid it. Generally, I think that's what we all ought to do. And one guy here in the office was like, mowing the lawn is leisure on Sunday for him. And we're all getting into it, because I'm like, no, it is not. But it kind of realizing, well, it's not for me, because I hate mowing the lawn. I don't like doing it. He really likes being outside, and he likes the exercise, and he likes mowing his lawn. And that's a break for him.
And there's certain types of people where like peacefulness comes with order.
Yeah.
And so like someone like cleaning up their house is like recreation.
Oh,
it's literally recreating themselves.
Yeah,
and so like I would
myself, yeah.
So like cleaning a car, like someone who I drive down the street sometimes and I see people like cleaning their car on the weekends and sometimes like on a Sunday afternoon. And I just don't think they're breaking this commandment more than me watching golf on a Sunday afternoon. They're just like, they're actually entering into some sort of like, I don't know.
It's like a hobby almost. I think I got a neighbor who washes his like truck every single weekend, and he just like pours over this thing in detail.
Yeah, details it. Like
that's the guy who just really likes his truck. Good for him.
So yeah, I would say that's important to recognize that different people have different understandings of what leisure is and their experience of it. But obviously, if you were in a situation where like a long-term situation where you wouldn't be able to go to Mass, you're probably called to at least discern how do I approach figuring out where I could go to Mass. I could at least sanctify the Lord's Day, either at a vigil or morning of or an evening, because we're not called to just separate ourselves from the sacraments. So there might be, I think of shift workers, nurses, who we have to have someone working in the ICU, right? But if it's every Saturday evening and Sunday, I'm sure there's another situation where you can work out with your employer and be like, hey, I'm a Christian. I want to worship the Lord. So I don't want to not worship the Lord at all ever on Sunday with my community. So how do I figure this out? And figuring out with your employee. And that's at the end of 2187. It says employers have a similar obligation toward their employees to provide for that space. So, that's when I brought up Chick-fil-A or anybody who has employees under them to respect that. And I think that's very important. Yeah.
So what kind of advice would you offer to Chase and to Roxy in their given situations? Like what about kind of just doing chores when you're really busy? If you're in a busy state in life and a lot of chores kind of just happen to fall on Sunday and that's when you can get them done, how does that jive with the Sabbath? And again, what about working your job, if you have to make ends meet? Let's just give some clear answers. Yeah.
I think from what we read in the Catechism today that there are certain jobs that they're a good to society, they're a necessity to society, And especially if it's out of charity to make ends meet for yourself or your family, definitely, at least in the short run, then that's okay. Yeah. I think working out a situation where you can adequately, according to your conscience, fulfill the commandment, the third commandment, to honor keep holy the Sabbath, then you should do that. But I don't think it's a sin to work your job if it's a job of necessity for your family or for the world. And then with Chase, I think we just talked about that. If you see chores as like fulfilling, checking the list off of these chores and like getting your house in order and stuff like that as like recreation, I don't think that's breaking the Sabbath. I think it would be namely about not thinking about God at all, right? Or not fulfilling your obligation to worship, or just not sanctifying Sunday at all. But sometimes people are like, well, I sanctify it. We have our system. We wake up early in the morning, we go to mass, we eat a lunch with, and then we all do the chores around the house, and it's still a family thing. Families are together. This is kind of a controversy in our diocese. Some priests have different understandings. They're like, I don't think we should have football games, middle school football games on Sunday. I disagree, because when I was little, we would wake up, go to mass. Our team would go to mass together. We'd get excited. After, we'd go to the field. We'd play a game. It was like family was together. The church was together. It was a church activity. It wasn't like we went to church and we did mass and then we all went home and did whatever. The entire church was together at this game. I don't have a problem with that, as long as it's not getting in the way. So like that's different
as long as
than
it's not competing with kind of that leisure and the worship. Yeah, I think
that would be different than like a travel ball team where you never end up at mass. A parish or diocesan sports league is very different than like a travel league or travel team that like pulls someone away from their community for like entire weekends out of the year. That would be, I think, maybe bad. I've seen it. I've seen it happen in families. And I'm like, hey, I haven't seen you at mass. You haven't been coming to mass. They're like, oh, we're traveling for softball a lot. And I'm like, oh, you hitting up places, wherever you're going? And they're like, no, not really. Well, that's breaking the commandment, right? You don't. It's not a necessity. Right. There's leagues here, and you're training your children to know that there's things that are more important. Right. Or you're training them, or to think that there's things more important than worshiping God on a Sunday, when that is absolutely not the case. So I don't mind parish or diocesan sports leagues. I think that's actually pretty cool, because it roots the community in the parish, which is nice.
Yeah, I like that. I think the closer it gets towards that kind of communal, like the Catechism says, cultural, social, and religious lives, like the closer you get to that as an ideal, I think the better. So I mean, if you're gonna have a big family meal, even if it's just your own family, someone's gonna make that. That's gonna be work, but that's still, true leisure and true family time, and that's kind of.
See, I don't think that's work. Like, I think that's recreation. That's culture. Yeah. Food.
Yeah,
food is
true.
culture.
You're right.
So
it's true. I'm thinking in that legalistic definition of work.
Yeah, well, and that's where the Lord set us free from that. I think in the old covenant there was this, and there was this whole. I mean, this is in Scripture too. We probably should have brought the Scripture up, but
the Lord of the Sabbath thing.
Yeah, the Lord of the Sabbath. Look it up real quick as I kind of paraphrase it, but it's when Jesus heals somebody. And so I'm thinking specifically of nurses and doctors who work on Sunday. Jesus heals somebody, and the Pharisees are like, you're breaking this commandment, right? Because they had this legalistic understanding that you literally couldn't, you only could like walk a certain distance. You could only, I know there's places in New York, someone who lived in New York once told me that like there's people who, very observant Jews, like they're Orthodox and kind of like very strict Jews, who like won't even press a button in an elevator.
Well, because I've heard growing up, I forget who told me this. I don't know if it was my grandpa or something, but he grew up in Long Island City, and talking about how like if you wanted a good like job as a teenager, you could try to find a Jewish family, like a really observant Jewish family that was willing to pay you to be the laborer for the Sabbath. So you would cook for them, and you would go around and turn on the lights, like literally flipping light switches, or moving tables or doing whatever else they need to kind of practice their Sabbath, and that they would hire out people to do that for them, as long as those people
get a Gentile to do it.
I'm like, that's fascinating.
Yeah, but I think
it's very legalistic. It's very legalistic.
Yeah, and I'm sure that even that strict of interpretation of the Old Covenant is not what the Lord necessarily desired, and He proves so in the Scriptures. But then even more so in the New Covenant, it's not really about that. I do not think. At least that's not what the Catechism interprets it, and that's not what the Church does so right now in 2021. 2188 is really interesting. I want to talk about that. 2188 in the Catechism. It says, in respecting religious liberty and the common good of all, Christians should seek recognition of Sundays and the Church's holy days as legal holidays. That's in the Catechism. The Catechism tells us that Christians who are working as people in the world, as representatives, as congressmen and women, and like we should seek to have those days recognized legally, so that we can observe them. So I think of things like Good Friday. So now, I mean, as the United States, we do get off for Christmas, right?
Yes.
That's a legal holiday. We get Easter's a legal holiday. In some places, St. Patrick's Day is a legal holiday.
Boston, yeah.
Boston, yeah, Chicago. In New Orleans and a lot of the South and Mobile, Mardi Gras and Ash Wednesday. Usually Mardi Gras is a holiday, but not Ash Wednesday, but everyone kind of goes to Mass anyway on Ash Wednesday, which is good. It's like the third most attended day of the year, which is just kind of crazy. But so it's kind of associated with church calendar. That's a legal holiday. But Good Friday, I've run into more and more of people not being able to observe Good Friday because it's not recognized by their jobs or their workers or their bosses. And I think of holy days of obligation, right? People who want to observe that, it might be good to work as Christians in the world to say, hey, this is kind of something we need and want because of our religious liberty.
Yep. I totally agree. I think it's something that we should, I don't know. I mean, the term lobby has such a bad connotation, but like it's something we should work for and seek recognition of, and even if that's in small scale stuff that you work out with your own employer and your own boss.
So what feast day or holy day of obligation would you want first recognized next? Like the next one to be recognized?
I mean, I think Good Friday is.
Well, that's not a holy day of obligation, but.
Well, I know, but I think that's right up there though, as like really important days.
Yeah, it's the middle of the Triduum.
To not work, especially because the way to observe it is in the middle of the day. It's like you're not gonna. I don't know. I feel like you're not gonna have an exaltation of the cross at 7:30 p.m. after work. Beyond that, I always forget is like the Annunciation is always weird because it's.
Annunciation is summertime, so a lot of times people can get away from that. I would say December 8th. I would like December 8th, Immaculate Conception. So the Immaculate Conception to be recognized universally because that's one that always is a holy day of obligation for us. Usually, I think because it's our patronal Marian title of the United States of America.
But personally, no, I want the Annunciation because I was born in the Annunciation. So I want my birthday off every day.
Every year. That would be
that'd be nice.
It's a little selfish of you.
Hey, fight me.
I will. Next time I come to Charlotte, we're gonna spar.
All right, yeah, December 8th versus March 25th.
Do you think that's gonna work out well for you?
No, but I'll do it.
We're gonna film it and put it on show notes.
I'll work out between now and whenever you come. So the next time I get a text saying, "Hey, I'm at the airport. I know where to drive down there."
Just attack me. That'll be great. Okay, cool. Well, I think we got that. Hopefully Chase and what's our lady's name? Roxy. Hopefully Chase and Roxy, that helps you out. I think just try to worship the Lord and make sure you observe it the best you can. That should be good. I think it's time for the Bean of the Week. We all need a little pick-me-up. Here's ours. You want me to start so you can come up with one very quickly?
No, I've got mine.
Whoa! What, you hiding it? You're not putting it in the Google Drive? Yeah, you don't want me to see it? You thought I was going to steal it?
Nah.
Okay.
I had 3, and it was basically which one am I going to forget to mention at the top. I've thought of being like, I got to go to D.C. this week, and that was great. But I'm like, I already mentioned that. And I was like, well, I could mention the Red Sox and how they're doing great, but I already mentioned that. So
okay,
it's my third one.
What's the third one?
So in Washington, D.C., I got to go to my alma mater, Catholic U, and visit the awesome churches that are there on campus, the chapels and churches that are there. So we had this really special moment, my wife and I, where we got to bring our son into Caldwell Chapel, which is beautiful stained glass windows, super old chapel. And that was just really special because we spent a lot of time there when we were in college and we were getting to know each other. But then I also got to see the Basilica in D.C., the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate
Conception.
Right. That's just like one of my favorite buildings on earth. And I've got a scavenger hunt for any listeners out there. If you're in D.C., inside the Basilica, there is a depiction of Jesus wearing bunny slippers.
No.
I'm not kidding.
Do not even.
I'm not even coming close to exaggerating. Jesus is wearing bunny slippers. And it is not in any way sacrilegious.
I'm trying to I feel like this is a riddle.
It's not. This is not a riddle. Exactly what I am saying is
bunny slippers.
Yeah,
like
he's wearing slippers.
Pink Easter pink.
They aren't pink. They're
okay.
white. But he's wearing slippers, and the slippers are decorated like bunnies, and they have ears sticking up off the feet.
Is there a historical, iconic explanation? I just really need you to explain it to me right now.
Kind of, yes. Well, here's the thing. I want to see if any of our listeners who might be in D.C., or maybe they already know about this, can find it and send us a picture. I want to see if someone else out there can go on a little scavenger hunt.
That's good. This January, I'm going to do that at the March for Life. I'm going to go find it. I'll tell all the kids. They'll be like, man, they'll be scavenging that place.
Well, I'll put it this way. So you know how it's like Our Lady depicted in like all the different cultures, right? All the different nations and all the different like ethnic groups. And Our Lady is often depicted with the Christ child, and they're often depicted according to like that culture.
Yeah.
In this particular culture, it's like a sign of like royalty and wealth and honor to wear slippers.
Gotcha.
Right. So it makes a little bit of sense, but
yeah. No, I think so. Yeah.
Slippers.
I mean, it's what it reminds me of is like Our Lady of Guadalupe. A Mary appearing, choosing to appear as a native of Mexico, not as a Spaniard, and with their cultural symbolism. So like the cord around her waist, her womb represents her virginity, and then there's another way she was standing that represents like she's pregnant, and there's all kinds of different symbols that make sense to a certain culture, but it doesn't necessarily make sense to us. The only problem or difference is that like bunny slippers sound like like gangster. To us, it sounds like rap mogul.
Really, I think of Ralphie from Christmas Story with the giant bunny costume that he has to wear in that.
That's a good
Even
point.
Though he's not wearing bunny slippers.
It could be him. It could be that. But it's just slippers in general make me think of like rich rapper dude. Like he's probably got a tiger too, like hanging in the corner with like a gold chain, and he's like, I'm wearing bunny slippers.
All right. Well, anyway, so if you're in the Basilica in D.C., send us a picture of Jesus wearing bunny slippers.
And send us 3 bars of a rap that you wrote about it. That'd be pretty epic. Okay, my pick-me-up is a podcast I've been listening to. It's still got 2 more episodes to go. I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, and it's created by Christianity Today, which I think is a very thoughtful, generally Christian publication. I've liked all the stuff I've read from them and heard from them. It's not Catholic, but I think they're very thoughtful. And The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill is a podcast. It's kind of a documentary style podcast about Mars Hill, which I looked up the other day, a reference to Acts of the Apostles. Mars Hill is where is a hill where Paul was preaching on. I think it's where the Areopagus was.
Okay.
When he said, like, here's the not
Like
the tomb of the unknown soldier, but the
temple of the unknown God.
Yeah, the altar to the unknown God. That was on Mars Hill. Okay, so like there's all these churches in the United States called Mars Hill, which sounds weird, but it's actually a scriptural thing. Well, there's a guy named Mark Driscoll who was just this mega church pastor and planter of churches. And there's kind of just like a lot of intrigue and scandal, and it's not a gossipy type show. It's showing the pitfalls of which we understand as Catholics so well of power and how power can be corruptive and how, you know, the place of humility and true sanctity that's needed in leadership and churches, and basically just showing how there could be imbalances of power, misuses of power within church structures, and that happened, and it's really kind of an interesting thing. And I talked to some of my friends who are more Presbyterian leaning, church planter type people, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this was like a big deal."
It's a big deal.
And so I learned a lot just about church dynamics and power dynamics for myself, you know, because I don't want to be the center of attention. I don't want to be the guy where it's like, oh, I'm going to this church now because Father Brad, you know, he has, you know, I don't know, is exciting. I'm not very exciting, actually.
I wouldn't say that. But I know what you mean, though. In terms of just learning from all this.
Yeah. So I go check it out. The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah, we'll link that below.
Cool. You've been listening to Catholic Coffee Talk with me, Father Brad, and our resident Good Catholic, Peter Goen. Coffee Talk is brought to you by the Catholic Company and is part of the Good Catholic Podcast Cooperative. If this episode has blessed you, you could find more content at goodcatholic.com. As always, we ask you to leave a review, a rating, share the pod with a friend, or simply pray for us and our mission. If you have a question of your own that has been percolating, shoot us an email at askapriest@goodcatholic.com. Or you could be like Chase and leave a voice message at speakpipe.com/Catholic Coffee Talk. We might feature your message on a future episode, and we'll answer all your questions to the best of our ability. To quote the psalmist, taste and see that the Lord is good. Continue to drink deeply from our great faith. We'll talk next week. Peace.